President Carter, thanks for talking with me again here with us at the Voice of America. And everybody has followed your life, your career, your very active post-presidency with great interest. And you're about to turn 95 years old. It's an age no president has ever reached. Are you in a moment of more reflection at this time in your life?
Yes, I'm withdrawing to some degree from the Carter Center and letting my grandson take over as chairman of the board. And we're getting a new chief executive officer as well soon. And so I'm withdrawing my active participation. I used to travel to Africa 3 or 4 times a year and always to China and so forth. So I've cut back on my foreign travel, but I'm still, involved in the Carter Center.
Is it hard for you to scale back, to stop doing certain things?
Well, it's kind of easy. I fell down a few months ago and broke my left hip, so I'm having to learn how to walk again, and so my actual movements are restrained a little bit, but I'm still active, mentally and get involved in the Carter Center affairs when I'm needed.
When I talked to you when you turned 90, I think the headline for the story was, at 90 years old, President Carter shows no signs of slowing down. Physically, you might be slowing down, but still, you're still engaged. I mean, do you feel that you're slowing down at all? Or, you're still committed, you're still active, you still have things you want to accomplish?
No, I still feel just about as active as I ever was, but my overseas movements are restrained because of age and health. But we're in fairly good health, the doctors say, and we get a lot of physical therapy these days, which is very difficult. But everything's going fine, I think.
Your last book that came out was titled Faith, which has been a very central and key part of your life and an important part of your life. How important has faith been in helping you get through some of the health setbacks that you've had recently?
Well, I have a lot of different kind of faith. One is faith in my religion. I happen to be a Christian, and so that's been very important to me. I have faith in my family and in the integrity of the Carter Center and the worth of the Carter Center, and I have faith in my local community as well, Plains, where you've been often, and so I have faith in a lot of things, but I would say I still adhere to the advice my school principal gave me. We must accommodate changing times, and these are really changing times, but cling to principles that never do change. So I have faith in those, principles like telling the truth and helping other people and so forth.
Plains is not a town that seems to have changed much at all, though, right?
No, we kind of deliberately approached Plains about 1937. When I was a teenager. And so we try to, in Plains, accommodate changing times, but cling to principles like friendship and welcome and hospitality and deep religious faith. We have about 700 people in Plains, and we have 11 churches. So we have heavily, Christian community. And that means a lot to all of us. The schoolhouse is the center of our activities now, and the park service goes, and all of our churches are doing pretty well.
You have a new pastor at Maranatha Baptist Church. Is there sort of a reinvigorated sense of community in your church now?
Yeah, we have an African-American pastor now, and he has really brought a lot of new vigor and new activity and reaching out to the community for our small congregation. And we welcome visitors twice a month when I teach. We have, sometimes 600 visitors crowd into our church, and we only have about 30 regular members, so it's quite an exciting thing for Plains when that happens.
And you've scaled back your participation in Sunday school now to about twice a month?
Twice a month, yes.
But it's still a major event.
It's a major event for our little church, and it's also a major event for Plains, as a matter of fact.
And it's a major event for the participants. This is a bucket list item. Many of them come from all over the world to hear you.
Well, we ordinarily have people there from about 40 countries, 40 states in the nation, and 15 to 20, sometimes more, from overseas who come. They're participated in all kind of religions, a lot of Christians, a lot of Jews, a lot of Muslims, sometimes, people of other faiths, and we welcome them all. And I try to teach a local-oriented lesson, but try to make it apply to modern-day life as best I can.
As a participant in the church event, when you're sitting in the pews listening to you talk, that's one part of the experience. Nobody knows what it's like to be you there behind the podium teaching to this entirely international large crowd that comes to hear you talk. Does it give you a sense of vigor? Does it give you a sense of commitment to keep doing this when you see all of those people there who came to listen?
Yeah, I see how sometimes people start getting there Saturday afternoon, and they arrive all night in parking out pecan orchard around the church, and so by 7 o'clock in the Sunday morning, the church is filled up. And so those people are very eager to come, to hear a politician teach the Bible, which is kind of a curiosity, I guess, to some. And they all want to get a photograph with me and my wife, which we always try to do. And that takes about half an hour, sometimes an hour after church is over, to do that. But it's a welcome excitement in my life.
It's not just planes, though. Here at the Conversations at the Carter Center event yesterday, it sold out in 5 minutes. You're a hot ticket item.
Well, my wife and I both, we have our own following. And tonight I'll be speaking to about 2,500 or 3,000 Emory College students who come and just primarily to ask me questions about current events and so forth.
And in that crowd, there are a lot of young people who are coming to listen to what you have to say. And in this crowd here at the Conversations at the Carter Center, there's many students, many young people. Even though you're 95 years old and your presidency was 40 years ago, you are resonating with an entirely new generation of Americans that weren't even alive when you were president.
Well, that's true. And we have 10 grandchildren and 14 or 15 great-grandchildren, so they visit us in Plains a lot, and they keep me and my wife young, at least dealing with young people's affairs and their interests and so forth. So that makes it easier for me to teach at Emory University, where I have taught now for, I think this is my 38th year.
So your own family is giving you some help or some experience in reaching the younger.
The family affairs, kind of break the ice with me and young college students, most of whom, were not living when I was active in politics.
And even though they weren't living, President Carter, there are still many issues that you had to tackle while you were in the White House that are still a concern in our world today. I mean, you talked a little bit about it last night at the Conversations at the Carter Center event, but peace in the Middle East was a hallmark of your presidency. The Camp David Peace Accords, 41 years ago, are still in place today, not a sentence of which has been broken to this point. It's the only successful peace agreement in the Middle East executed thus far.
Between Israel and Egypt, that's true. The peace treaty we negotiated, that Begin and Sadat and I negotiated more than 40 years ago, is now, still intact. And I would say that the relationship between the Egyptian people and the Israeli people are more intense and more personal, more friendly than they ever were before. Unfortunately, Israel hasn't followed up adequately on the agreement to give the Palestinians what they consider to be their basic human rights. But the election in Israel that's going on right now holds a lot of impact on the future. And I don't know how much it'll change things, but at least we keep glimmers of hope for peace between Israel and her neighbors, which is one of the main goals that I've had in my life as far as foreign affairs is concerned, for 30 or 40 years.
Other presidents have tried to use the Camp David peace accords as a model for other peace agreements, and none of them have been successful, including other agreements between Israel and some of its warring neighbors. Why do you think you succeeded and others have failed?
Well, I had an intense interest in the subject. I had studied the Bible, as far as background on Judaism and Christianity and the interrelationship among people that for many years before I went to Camp David. And I had two very stalwart and courageous political leaders in Anwar Sadat in Egypt and with Menachem Begin in Israel as well. So all three of us wanted to have peace. And I think that the prayers that we asked the whole world to join in offering when we began, paid off. We still need peace in the Holy Land. And so that's still one of my dreams for the future. It's not as bright a prospect as it was, 30, 40 years ago, but it still burns in the hearts and souls of many people in the Middle East.
Last night at the event also, too, you mentioned, I was here in 2015 during your press conference announcing that you were dealing with cancer. And one of the most resonating things in the exchange that you had with us reporters in the audience that day was that you still wanted to see the eradication of guinea worm in your lifetime.
Yeah, I still do. And we're making progress with a lot of unforeseen obstacles boiling down to local situations and the infusion of dogs and other animals into the equation, which we never anticipated earlier. So we still have about 20, in the neighborhood of 25 cases of guinea worm, but we started out with 3.5 million. So that's still good progress. But we're working on it, and we're determined at the Carter Center to succeed.
Last night, there was this mentioning that you want to shift the way that you're reporting the success or the progress of some of these health initiatives, and that's to talk about cases that are no longer in existence or cases that have already been solved. And I think guinea worm's a really good example of this, perhaps to illustrate this point. Even though there might be several dozen human cases currently in the world, it's a remarkable thing to go from 3.5 million some 30 years ago to 30 or 36 even.
And we had guinea worm in 21 countries now. Now we only have primarily in Chad and one case in 2 other countries. So we've cut down the number of cases, a number of in the world, and we think we've prevented maybe 80 million people from having guinea worm that would have had it otherwise. So we've made very good progress, but we still have a little ways to go.
But even if it's not totally eradicated in your lifetime, surely you must accept some sense of accomplishment in those statistics, right?
Well, I do. Part of it's rationalization, and part of it is genuine pride and statistical analysis. We've made a lot of progress, there's no doubt about that.
There's also a new direction you want the Carter Center to embark upon, and that's focusing on peace, essentially.
Well, we've always worked for peace around the world, but we've kind of ignored the United States. And I gave some statistics last night, I believe. We've been a country now for 243 years. We've only been completely at peace for 16 of those years. We've been at war 220-something years. So the United States is still one of the most warlike countries in the world, believing, many of our people believe, that it's okay to go to war with somebody else if we're going to change their way of government to look like ours. And that's an incorrect thing. So I think most of the wars in which we've been involved in recent years, beginning with the Vietnam War and maybe back in the Korean War, and certainly those wars in Iraq and Afghanistan and Syria and Yemen and so forth, are just completely unnecessary. So the Carter Center is going to concentrate more on maintaining peace, including with the United States and other countries. And we're also going to try to be #1 nation in the world, not only in peace, but also human rights and environmental equality, and the treatment of everybody as equals, no matter what their religion might be, or no matter what party they might be, or whether they be African American or white or Hispanic, and no matter what their religious orientation might be. So to treat everybody equal is one of the primary foundations of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights.
President Carter, you are in a rarefied position in the world in which you understand what it means to sit in the Oval Office and have to deal with difficult decisions, the politics of our country. Who was your presidential role model, or the president you admired most, and how did you maybe try to emulate him, and how do you compare that with the political moment we find ourselves in today?
Well, my favorite president that lived during my lifetime was Harry Truman. When I was in the submarine force, Harry Truman ordained 7 or 8 years before Martin Luther King and Rosa Parks came along that there would be an end to racial segregation in the military services and also in the civil service. And he took a lot of grief because of that condemnation from people in the South and other places. So Harry Truman was always my hero. And I tried as best I could to emulate what he had done. I think, so far as I know, Harry Truman always tried to tell the truth when he was in office. He faced some very difficult, issues with courage and I think with clarity. And I tried to pattern my administration to some degree after him.
The truth, never telling a lie to the American public, honesty. Some of the people I talked to after your event last night said those are the important qualities you had that they feel lack in today's political discourse.
Well, I think we have an administration now that has told maybe thousands of lies since it's been in office. And I tried as best I could, and I think basically succeeded. We always told the truth to the American people. And all of my assistants in the White House knew that that was my policy, and I think they tried to comply with that also. That's one of the hallmarks, I think, of a leader is to tell the truth. And if his subordinates or her subordinates can't trust what the leader says, then that weakens the entire thrust of what the leader tries to do to bring the country to a better position. So I would like to see the United States in the future strive to be the #1 champion in the world of peace and human rights and environmental equality, and I would say treating everybody equal. If we could do that, we'd have a real superpower in the country that I love very much.
That's a perfect way to end the interview, President Carter. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak with you and for the time that you spend with us to share your thoughts and your concerns. Thank you very much for joining us at the Voice of America.
It's always good to be with you.
It's always good to be with you too, President Carter. Thank you.